Henry was standing in his backyard, looking up at the beautiful array of stars above him when his wife found him. Every time he exhaled, a white cloud would be sent out from him into the below-freezing, stinging cold air. He was shivering and in pain from the cold, but still he looked up ever humbly at the night sky's stars. His wife cried out to him and pleaded for him to go back to bed, but he answered with, "It's okay, Carol. I just need to think for a few minutes. You go on back to bed. I'll be fine. I just I just need to think for a few minutes." Although he was standing outside in the freezing cold, wearing just his pajamas and slippers, Carol did not look so surprised, just sad. "Honey," she said, "there's only so much we can do in this world. We can only make the best with what we are given. Beating yourself up over things that cannot be changed is only going to make things worse." She had walked up to him and was now standing by his side. "So many stars," said Henry. His eyes were full of pain and sorrow as he looked up. "The stars that we see in our sky is just a minuscule fraction of the amount of stars that are in our galaxy. Carol, did you know that there are at least 400 billion stars in our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy?" Carol looked up at the stars and then back at him. She was somewhat expressionless until she realized what he was about to say next. "Every second," he said, "my machines slaughter 111,000 animals." Out of nervousness, his hands were fidgeting with each other over his stomach. Every single year," he enunciated, "my machines kill 3.5 trillion animals, and it's because of me." Carol's expression became serious. "Henry, look at me. Look at me." She forced him to turn his head towards her, saying, "Look at me, Henry." Their eyes locked, and she said, "It is not your fault. You understand me?" She let go of his jawline, and she continued, saying, "How could you have known that when you created the machines, how could you have known that they would be used for killing animals? You created them with the intent of just making change for the better in the world. It's the people who decided to turn your inventions into killing machines who are to blame, not you." They spent some seconds there, and she was rubbing his back comfortingly as they stood there. "Please," she said, "let's go back to bed. It's cold out here." Henry nodded slowly, and they turned around and went back inside. An hour later, as Carol was sound asleep, Henry lay there next to her with his eyes shut, trying to fall asleep. But all he could see were the sickening moments that had been burnt into his mind, the way the machines slaughtered the animals in their cold demeanor. Within the confines of slaughterhouses all over the world, the machines would fleetly pierce a blade into the throats of pigs, chickens, cows, lambs, turkeys, and so on. They'd pry or stuff the pigs into gas chambers in order to render them unconscious, and with the carbon dioxide burning the lungs and eyes of the pigs would scream in agony and fear. And then there was the thought of how the machines would deal with the piglets that seemed unprofitable to the industry. Henry winced uncontrollably at the memory. If a machine saw that one of the piglets was too weak, they would pick the piglet up by the hind legs and smash the piglet against the concrete. Henry opened his eyes and sat up. In the dark of the night, when all was quiet and calm, he whispered something that he hoped spirits could hear, if there were any spirits to hear it. Deeply, he hoped that there were spirits, little souls flying here and there, eternally free from this hellish world. He hoped that those little chickens and pigs and so on whom he was thinking of would have a life beyond this one. I contemplated that moment in his life. Dead, as he would call it, I was. And yet there I was, looking at that man who was hoping that I was, in some metaphysical sense, still living. I found that moment ironic. He felt so full of guilt in those days of his life. A week had come to pass, and he and his wife were getting ready to go to a convention out of town. He was putting on his tie when his wife entered the room, wearing her elegant dress and jewelry. "We're going to be late. Let's go," she smiled. I know," replied Henry as he followed close behind her outside to the car, bringing the speech paper with him. When they finally made it to the convention, they entered into a room full of dining tables and people sitting at those dining tables. At the front of the room there was a small stage and a podium. Walking up to the podium was a young-looking man in a suit. "Good evening, everyone," said he once he was at the microphone. On the wall behind him there was an image of what looked like a galaxy. "Today marks a very important day in history, as you all know. Today, this evening, 28 units of the machines will be sent into space on course to planet LHS 1140b. This planet is 40 light years away, and yet just this evening our machines will be on their way to it. With state-of-the-art technology, we will soon learn of the vast potential that these machines possess. Over the past 3 years, crime has been rapidly decreasing because of the magnificence that is the machines. These incredible machines have been breaking barriers and amazing us ever since they were put to use. They have been zoning in on criminals and warlords and accomplishing things that human beings could never even dream of accomplishing. International conflicts have been ending worldwide because of these machines, and even newer and more amazing technologies and inventions are coming into existence because of these machines. And now, because of these machines, we are on the brink of commencing our first interstellar expedition. Ladies and gentlemen, there is someone I want to introduce to you. He is the man who created these machines. Days he spent designing the machines and, mind you, writing the code for their program. The genius, the man of the hour. Please give a round of applause for Henry Goldman. Henry got up from his chair as a spotlight shone down upon him. His white hair seemed to shine beneath the light. He walked over to the podium smiling happily, and when he was there behind the mic, he looked to all the people who had gathered there to hear him speak about his machines and interstellar travel. His smile faded away as he quickly realized that he would be disappointing them. "Thank you, everyone. Thank you," said he into the microphone. He sighed softly and stood there somewhat awkwardly, not saying anything. He looked at the announcer who stood aside at the far end of the little stage, and the announcer smiled back, giving a thumbs up. Henry looked at the audience again, and then finally looked down at his speech paper that he had brought with him. The first sentence in the speech summary that he had written was, Have any of you ever been inside a slaughterhouse?" Henry started feeling nervous and anxious. He wanted to start reciting his speech to the audience, but the words were not coming out of his mouth. His heartbeat was quickening. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then regained his posture. When he exhaled, he opened his eyes, and the fear was gone. He said, "I'm sure you all want to hear the details of such exciting things as interstellar travel. But I am afraid that although this is a convention where I am supposed to get you all even more excited for the grand launch, I will not be speaking about it." The camera crews and news stations had their video cameras set on Henry. Cameras were flashing. Instead, he said, "I would like to mark on an issue that I believe is far more important than interstellar travel. You see, a few weeks ago, I saw something that I will never forget. A few weeks ago, I saw something that haunts me to this day. One of my machines was carrying out the process of slaughter on a pig. A pig. Several pigs, actually." The announcer on the side and many people in the audience were making confused looks at each other, and Henry continued saying, "I would like to ask you all, have any of you ever been inside a slaughterhouse? In the slaughterhouses, there is a stench of what smells like hot death, a stench of what smells like fear and blood." And Henry continued on, making his speech. He spoke sincerely and earnestly, and told his story. At this convention, where he was supposed to be exploring details of how his machines would soon be traveling to an incredibly distant planet, he was instead using the opportunity to speak of the serious and horrific issues of modern-day slavery, of a modern-day Holocaust, and of systematic torture. His speech lasted for 7 minutes and 49 seconds, and when he was done, he apologized again for not speaking about what they, the audience, wanted him to speak about, and then he thanked them for listening.